Welcome all to my video, and let's discuss putting in work. Why is it important to put in work? It's important to put in work to work towards putting yourself in that space that you need to be in, putting yourself in that position in life that you need to be in. As you know, you only get one chance, one life to live exactly like the one that we're in. One stab at the opportunity that you have when it comes to using your mind state in this third dimension reality that we all coexist in, using your physical body that you're in this lifetime one time, using your emotional state of being that you carry with yourself is something that you get to experience in only this specific lifetime, specifically this way. And when it comes to spiritually, you're only on this exact spiritual travel and being a spirit in this physical vessel, having these spiritual experiences in this spiritual travel one time until it's over. So that's why it's important to put in work. That's another reason why one should put in work. Another reason why one shouldn't be, let's say, slow to put in hard work or lazy per se, or anything resistance against putting in work. And putting in work is done in multiple ways. You can be putting in work and towards something and realize that the work that you're putting in towards this is going to benefit the work that you're putting in towards something else, or the work that you're putting in towards something now. You need to balance it out so that you can continuously put in work in these other things and in these other things that you have to put in work towards, to continue on getting great, to continue on being strong. And that's not a bad thing, that this is the only chance that we have, the one opportunity that we have, meaning the life that we're in right now, to experience this. At the end of the day, we use that knowledge and that wisdom of having that awareness of how much of a rarity and how special that this is, to push us forward to continue on putting in work, to push us forward to creating the life that we need and the experiences that we need by putting in the work to get ourselves towards that space, to get ourselves into that space. And when it comes to mentally, should always be putting in work when it becomes a thing where you're mentally putting in work. Mentally putting in work is always growing mentally, always expanding when it comes to mentally, always creating through your mental state of being and using your mental state of being in order to benefit your other states of beings. For example, the physical, emotional, spiritual state of being. Using your mind in order to put in that work that you need to put in that intuitive work, put in that intellectual work, put in that smart work that you need to put in when it comes to mentally, rather than being on a experience in life of being mentally stagnant or being mentally unfit in order to put in the work that you need to put in, or experiencing some sort of a mental illness just because you aren't putting in the work when it comes to mentally. You could be experiencing a mental illness just because you're putting in work towards something that isn't beneficial towards moving you towards the space that you need to be in to most benefit yourself. So you could really improve all sorts of things having to do with your mental state of being by constantly putting in that work mentally, constantly growing your mind state, constantly becoming smarter, constantly becoming more mentally fit, more mentally sound. When it comes to putting in your work mentally, you need to figure out, how can I use my mind state to put in the work mentally towards thinking about how can I best use my physical state of being? How can I best improve my physical state of well-being by using my mental state of being to continuously put in work, rather than resting on, oh, okay, everything is good how it is, everything's as good as it's going to be, or I've put in as much work as possible. I don't care how it looks. You got to keep putting in that work regardless of how it looks. Like I said, you got one opportunity at this, so why wouldn't you put in as much work as possible? Why would you stop putting in the work when you can continuously put in work when it comes to mentally? Mentally, continuously think about, how can I use my emotional state of being to continuously moving myself towards benefiting myself and improving my state of well-being? How can I mentally think about my spiritual path that I'm on, the spiritual purpose that I have in life, and improving that, and how my actions, thinking about how I can do more things to benefit my spiritual state of being, do things to benefit me moving on to an even better spiritual plane of existence. So thinking about that, just not thinking about, okay, I can only think about my mental state of being. Also think about how you can use your mental state of being to put in work towards your other states of beings. And therefore, mentally, you will continuously grow because you're always applying your mental state of being to whatever it is you're doing. Whether that be something that you're doing when it comes to mentally, like we talked about, or something that you're doing physically, emotionally, or spiritually. Continuously put in that mental work, put in that mental ability, that mental pressure, keep applying that mental pressure and putting in that work to continuously grow. Keep growing that mind state, keep creating new mental forms for you to be able to use. Keep creating stronger mental forms, stronger forms of mental fortitude, ways of getting through each situation to another situation when it comes to mentally and being strong and mentally having perseverance through each experience. Continuously putting in that work so that you can do so. And continuously putting in that work mentally when it comes to improving your mind state, improving your mental stability, improving your mental capacity for absorbing new information, improving your mental capacity for creating new thought forms, for facilitating the growth of pre-existing thought forms, and not only that, but the transformation of these thought forms into deeper, into more farther expanded concepts. Therefore, you can grow your intuition, you can grow your intellectual property that you own when it comes to mentally, you can grow your intellectual abilities that you have when it comes to mentally by continuously putting in that work when it comes to mentally. Don't just rest on, okay, I've already learned this when it comes to mentally, I've applied my mental state of being to this, I'm not gonna no longer go on to putting in more work when it comes to mentally. Bullshit, you gotta continuously put in that work when it comes to mentally. Otherwise, who knows what kind of mental illness is gonna afflict you? Who knows what kind of mental space that you might find yourself in that may be afflicting you? Who knows what you're gonna have when challenges, obstacles, situations that are gonna put you in when it comes to being in a space where you're mentally being opposed against, or mentally getting some oppositional energy when it comes to mentally. You gotta build your mental state of being in order to be stronger than that. Gotta build up your mental strength, build up your mental protection in order to continue pushing on and continuously putting in that work mentally, as far as putting yourself in the right mind state, putting yourself in the right space when it comes to mentally, in order to do what you need to do in this life, in order to continue on the path that you're on in this life, whether that be mentally, physically, emotionally, or spiritually, whatever that may be. Continuously put in that mental work. Don't just, like I said, stop putting in that work when it comes to mentally. You don't know when's the next time you're going to be challenged when it comes to mentally. What's the next situation you're going to get through that's going to be highly dependent on your perseverance when it comes to mentally. Highly dependent on your ability to continuously put in work when it comes to mentally. The more work that you put in when it comes to mentally, the more perseverance you're going to have. The more work you put in when it comes to mentally, the more mental stability you're going to have. The more work you put in when it comes to mentally, the more mental strength you're going to have. The more work you put in when it comes to mentally, the more sharper you're going to be when it comes to mentally. The more work you put in when it comes to mentally, the more smarter you're going to be when it comes to mentally. The more work that you put in when it comes to mentally, the more abilities you're going to gain. The more abilities you're going to sharpen up on when it comes to mentally. You're going to create the reality that you need to create mentally, and putting in continuously putting in that work that you need to put in when it comes to mentally, to get yourself into the space that you need to be in, to push yourself forward further and further onto the plane of existence that you need to be in when it comes to that is beneficial to your one's own state of being. And not only that, but when it comes to physically, you got to continuously keep putting in that work when it comes to physically. Like I said, you get one opportunity to be in this physical vessel that you're currently in this lifetime. When it comes to putting in that work when it comes to physically, this constitutes taking care of your physical state of being. This constitutes protecting your state of being. This constitutes doing what you need to do in order to benefit your physical state of being. This constitutes putting yourself in the right physical space, in the right physical situations, dealing with the right person, places, and things in order to best benefit yourself when it comes to physically. This also constitutes doing the right actions, fulfilling the right purposes when it comes to your actions that you take when it comes to physically, in order to keep putting in that work to put yourself in that space that is most beneficial to one's own state of being and state of well-being for that matter. Don't stop putting in physical work just because, oh, you feel like you've already put in enough work. Don't stop putting in physical work because you feel like you're tired of putting in the work when it comes to physically. Don't stop putting in physical work because you feel like you're weak when it comes to physically. That right there is a spot of weakness that you can get through, and you can fight that with continuously putting in the work when it comes to physically. Like I said, the stronger, the more work that you put in, the more physically perseverance you're going to have, the more physical strength you're going to have, and the more physical ability you're going to have to get through whatever it is that you need to get through in order to get to that space that you need to be in when it comes to physically. And therefore, you go on from that point on putting in the work when it comes to continuously putting in that work physically. Like I said, taking care of your vessel when it comes to getting the exercise that you need, continuously getting that exercise, pushing forward to putting in that work in towards getting that exercise that you need, whatever that may consist of, whatever that may be, that is right for your physical state of being, that is right for your physical vessel, and taking care of that. Do what you need to do in order to continuously put in that work. Whether that be cardio, lifting weights, whatever you can do in order to take care of your physical state of being, you gotta continuously put in that work. Continuously be putting that work in when it comes to physically. You don't want to just stop doing all that and then not take care of your physical state of being. You know, I talk about on my channel how in order for you to be in this experience as long as possible, you have to have the right physical actions and be putting in physical work as far as stuff that is going to take care of your physical state of being, that is going to improve your health, not involved with things that are going to degrade your health, not involved with things that are going to possibly lower your life expectancy, lower the amount of time that you have to experience in this physical vessel. And if that's the case, if you are doing that, you're only perpetuating a shortening of time that you have in order to experience using your mind that is located and in tandem with the physical state of being that you're in currently. Using your physical state of being that is specific to yourself, not that you own it or anything like that, because at the end of the day, we're inhabitants of the earth. We don't necessarily just own this, because when we fall away and when we pass away, this gets returned to the earth, and Mother Nature takes back what is its own. And so being able to experience the physical vessel that you are in currently in this lifetime, being able to interact, have your emotional state of being flowing through the body, and having the sensations, having the feelings, not only that, but reacting to things in the way that you do that is specific to your specific physical vessel that you're in this lifetime. And as well as if you're putting in that work when it comes to physically towards expanding the amount of time that you have, putting in the improvements that you need to put in order to have a longer experience. You're going to have more spiritual experiences. Therefore, your spirit's going to have an even greater time, an even longer time to be able to grow, longer time to be able to gain more wisdom, gain more knowledge, gain more experiences on the travel that it's in when it comes to this specific lifetime that we are in. So putting in that work physically is much more deeper than just, oh, I gotta take care of my body. It's much more deeper than, I just want to do what I want to feel like doing right now, whether that's degrading my health or not. It's much deeper than, oh, I've put in this amount of work, now I can take a rest and I can destroy my body, or I can have physical actions that aren't actually right and aren't actually the correct work to be putting in. Actually, they are, it's actually counterproductive to be doing those things, rather than you perceiving it to be, oh, this is the right thing for me to do. You're actually not doing the correct things when it comes to putting in the work, when it comes to physically. You're doing things that are quite the opposite of taking care of your physical state of being, putting in the right actions that you need to put in order to get yourself to the physical state of being. In order to achieve certain things in the physical state of being, you got to continuously put in work. We know that things just don't come out of nowhere. Things just don't fall out of the sky and land on your lap. You got to continuously put in that work in order to achieve certain things in this dimension physically that we live in. You got to continuously put in that work. You got to continuously grow when it comes to physically. You got to continuously protect yourself when it comes to physically. You got to continuously go through these scenarios, these situations, these obstacles, these challenges that everyone faces when it comes to physically, and remain on top, remain superior regardless of what it is you're going through. And pushing through that and putting in that work when it comes to physically, finding yourself much stronger for going through it, finding yourself in a much healthier position, a much healthier space when it comes to physically, a much more expanded perspective of things when it comes to physically, much more expanded wisdom of what is going on in the existence that you're in when it comes to physically, a much expanded perspective of knowledge when it comes to what you're experiencing in this existence when it comes to physically. So physically, keep putting in that work, regardless, like I said, when it comes to mentally. I don't care how it looks, I don't care person, places, or things, how your situation looks when it comes to how you perceive it when it comes to physically. You got to continuously put in that work. Only know that the only recognition that you need for the work that you're putting in is from yourself. Of course, you can get recognition from others, and that can be a thing where it confirms or it constitutes you continuously being motivated to put in that work. But at the end of the day, you need to start with within and being able to validate your own hard work that you put in when it comes to physically. Validate the own actions that you're putting in the work when it comes to physically, in order to most benefit your own state of being. And therefore, you can now have the ability to positively impact other people's ways that they put in work when it comes to recognition, when it comes to validation. At the end of the day, you gotta validate, you gotta recognize, self-recognize that you're putting in the work, the correct work, in order to keep pushing yourself towards the experiences that you need to be experiencing, in order to be putting in that work when it comes to physics, to experience the spaces, dealing with the person, places, or things that are most beneficial towards your growth when it comes to physically, towards your expansion when it comes to physically. And the only way you're going to reach that space, the only way you're going to reach those actions, the only way you're going to be involved in those person, places, or things, or scenarios and situations, is by constantly putting in that work, constantly pushing the needle when it comes to physically, constantly doing what it is you need to do in order to physically grow, doing what it is in order that what you need to do, putting in the work that you need to do to physically continuously move forward. So keep putting in that work when it comes to physically. Doesn't matter how hard it is. The harder the work that you're putting in when it comes to physically, the more results you're going to get. The harder the work that you're putting in when it comes to physically, the more stronger you're going to become when it comes to physically. The harder the work that you're putting in when it comes to physically, the more you're going to know what you need to do in order to reach that space that you need to reach when it comes to physically. The harder the work, the more work that you're putting in, the right and correct work that you're putting in when it comes to physically, you're going to be taking care of your physical state of being much more, perhaps, than you were in the past, much more than you are presently. And therefore, in the future, you will be on a growth of putting in that work and continuously putting in that work in order to reach the right space when it comes to physically. Think about you want to be able to use the mind state that you have with the physical vessel that you have for a time period that is you putting in work. Not that you are not putting in work and being lazy or whatever that may be. You want to experience the physical state of being by putting in work, not by being lazy, not by just going as far as you think you need to go, or as far as you see other people going, or as far as the most common work that people put in is. You need to continuously push that needle for yourself and continuously put in the work physically for yourself. And for the other one, for those that you care about, and for those that are part of your travel when it comes to mentally, part of your travel when it comes to physically, emotionally, and spiritually, you got to continuously put in that work when it comes to physically. When it comes to emotionally, continuously put in work when it comes to emotionally. And like I've said before on this channel, that's regardless of how you feel. Regardless of how you're feeling when it comes to emotionally, continue on getting stronger, developing better ways of how you emotionally react to the reality that you're in, emotionally react to person, place, or things that you have to end up dealing with throughout your experiences, throughout your travels that you're traveling through. Continuously put in that work when it comes emotionally, like emotionally growing, becoming more emotionally mature, being able to have that emotional intuition that whatever it is that you're going through, you're good as long as you know, hey, I'm emotionally stable, as long as I know I'm emotionally strong, I can get through whatever it is I need to get through, and continuously put in the work that I need to put in order to benefit my emotional state of being, in order to benefit my, not just my emotional state of being, but for you to be a soldier for the emotional state of being of the universe, in order to be a soldier for the emotional state of being of God, in order for you to be a soldier in the emotional state of being of those that you care about, in order for you to carry all that weight that you have to carry when it comes to emotionally. And I'm not talking bad baggage that one may have, I'm talking about stuff that you choose to carry on, stuff that you are strong enough in order to bear in this lifetime when it comes to you being strong enough emotionally to get through those situations. Don't stop putting in that work when it comes to emotionally, because you're going to continuously reach a space that you're more stable in. You're going to continuously reach a space that you're more emotionally available to deal with not only your own emotions, but other people's emotions that you care about, other people's emotions that you're in agreement with when it comes to mentally, that you're in agreement when it comes to physically, that you're in agreement when it comes to emotionally, that you're in agreement when it comes to spiritually. You're going to be strong enough in order to continuously put in that work in order to, whatever it is that you're dealing with. This is now my emotional reaction to things because I put in this work when it comes emotionally. Now if I deal with something really hard, I don't even have to worry about freaking out about it. I don't have to worry about getting sad or getting depressed just because one thing doesn't go my way, this thing doesn't go that way, that thing doesn't go my way. The way that I'm emotionally reacting to it is by being strong because of the emotional work that I put in, the work that I put in when it comes to my emotional state of being, the work that I put in towards having a balanced emotional state of being, having a strong emotional state of being able to, like I said before, not necessarily care of, oh, I just don't feel like doing something right now. Continuously put in that work. You don't feel like doing something right now, then honestly, that's just a cop-out. That's just an excuse. Bypass that, because you're knowing that if you get through this, even though emotionally you don't feel like you want to do this, at the end of the day, and you getting through that situation, you're going to be stronger for it when it comes to emotionally. You're going to be much more grown when it comes to going through that situation, much more mature emotionally, much stronger, much more balanced, much more stable when it comes to emotionally after you have gone through that difficult situation, after you have gone through that challenging situation, after you have gone through something that you didn't originally want to go through. You're going to have to be putting in that work constantly when it comes to physically, regardless of what your emotional state is giving you, regardless of how you feel when it comes to emotionally. You're going to have to continuously put in that work when it comes to mentally, regardless of how you feel when it comes to emotionally, regardless of what your emotional state of being is experiencing in that time. You're going to have to continuously push forward and continuously putting in that work. And I've already talked about emotionally, you got to stay strong. You got to stay emotionally powerful, emotionally present, and emotionally available to deal with whatever it is that you need to deal with, to put in that work in order to reach the space that is most beneficial for oneself. And not only oneself, but teamwork making the dream work, be emotionally strong and emotionally available and emotionally vulnerable in order for others to reach that space along with you. And these are others that are in agreement with you, like I talked about when it comes to mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And when it comes to spiritually, you got to continuously go forward on your path when it comes to spiritually, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what your emotional state of being is dealing with. You got to continuously push forward and put in that work when it comes to spiritually, staying on your path when it comes to spiritually, fulfilling your purpose when it comes to spiritually, finding that meaning when it comes to spiritually and the existence and the life that we're in, regardless of how you feel, regardless of what your emotional state of being is dealing with. And therefore, if you continuously put in this work when it comes to emotionally, you're going to be stronger than ever. You're going to have full control over your emotional state of being. You're going to have full balance over your emotional state of being. And you're going to continue on being a inspiration when it comes emotionally. You're going to continue on being a strong person when it comes emotionally. You're going to continue on being a strong being when it comes emotionally. You're going to continue on being angelic per se when it comes emotionally, meaning you are getting emotionally strong enough to where you're not lost in emotional. You're not lost in an emotion per se, like a demon or something that is demonic, something that is lost in emotion, that is lost in a desire. You're actually more able to even deal with your emotional state of being. Therefore, angelically, you can have that mind state, that angelic mind state of, I'm basically having that perspective of whatever it is that I am dealing with when it comes emotionally, whatever thing I may experience when it comes emotionally, I'm getting through it. I'm being an angel when it comes to being inspirational with the way that you feel, the way that you interpret your feelings, the way that you deal with what you have to deal with when it comes emotionally, and not being so attached to that and not being stuck in that emotion like a demon. So basically, having that higher perspective, that higher mind state of whatever it is that you're dealing with is going to allow you to have that halo above your head and have that, even if, you gotta be like, I've been through hell, I've been through the worst of it when it comes emotionally. But after experiencing that, after being surrounded by demons, after being turned into a demon, by whatever experience I've been through, I came out on top. I came out as an angel. I came out as a phoenix rising. I came down from those experiences, separated from heaven, separated from God, and now consistently am continuously being an angel, not lost in emotion, but having that higher mind state, having that higher angelic way of going about your experiences that you're dealing with. And that's something that you're going to be able to reach as long as you continuously put in that work when it comes to emotionally. Continuously put in that work emotionally. I don't care how you feel. You shouldn't care how you feel either, because at the end of the day, you got to put in that work regardless of how you feel. When it comes to spiritually, you can't stop putting in that work when it comes to spiritually. Your spiritual path that you're on is one that is most important, because the way that you affect, the way that you are spiritually putting in your energies into the world that we're in, into the reality that we're in, is going to be what you leave here. Like I said, you get one opportunity in this specific spiritual travel that you're on right now. So why wouldn't you put in as much work as possible? Why wouldn't you fulfill as much spiritual journey, as much spiritual path, as much being on that spiritual journey, and putting in the spiritual work that you need to put in order to leave this reality the way that you want to impact it? Leaving this reality having put in countless, unlimited, infinity amount of work when it comes to spiritually. Therefore, you have spiritual dominion over the reality. You have spiritual superiority over what it is that happens to you on your oncoming spiritual travels. Why wouldn't you continuously put on the work when it comes to spiritually, rather than just sitting and thinking, oh, I know everything, I know the existence as far as mentally, physically, emotionally, and then I know everything that it has to do with when it comes to spiritually? Definitely not. Definitely you can continuously grow and continuously discover things as far as when it comes to out of putting in the work when it comes to spiritually, continuing on your path when it comes to spiritually, continuing on your journey when it comes to spiritually, continue on putting in the work when it comes to your purpose when it comes to spiritually. And don't be someone who is just spiritually lost, someone that is spiritually weak, and therefore you have no ability to continue on putting in the work when it comes to spiritually. Don't be someone who is spiritually powerless or is spiritually not able to put in that work in order to grow when it comes to spiritually. The more work you put in when it comes to spiritually, the more growth your spirit is going to take, the more in shape and form, and being able to take better shape and form in whatever it is that you're going to experience in your oncoming life experiences that you'll experience. So continuously put in that work when it comes to spiritually. Keep spiritually growing. Keep spiritually, discovering. Keep spiritually expanding. Keep spiritually creating more spiritual systems so that you are a strong spirit, so that you have a spiritual perspective that is ever expanding, a spiritual perspective that is ever growing. Therefore, you're going to continuously move towards the right space, towards the right spiritual plane of existence that is going to be beneficial towards one's own state of well-being, one's own spiritual state of well-being. In order to continually grow spiritually, you got to continuously put in that work when it comes to spiritually. Don't rest on what you think you know. Don't rest on your old and outdated spiritual systems that aren't going to benefit you when it comes to your travels, going to benefit you when it comes to needing to be able to put in that work, needing to reach the space that you need to reach. And therefore, if you continuously put in that work when it comes to spiritually, you'll be spiritually protected. If you continuously put in that work when it comes to spiritually, you're going to be mentally, physically, emotionally protected. So other than that, like I said, you get one shot at this specific experience that we're in. So why not continuously put in that work? Keep on putting in that work.